So in this sequence, what we really want to talk about is the final block. So blocking out a car is, of course, taking it and making it smooth. Can you grab a longer sanding block and a piece of, what do you got on there, 320?
Nope.
So I don't generally, we're going to do this for a demonstration, but we won't generally block sand in a paint booth. Obviously, you don't want the dust in here. In fact, I'm pretty regimented about not allowing dust to come in here. So just got finished shooting it yesterday. The high build primer has had 24 hours to cure out, which is enough time to begin blocking it. And so now it's time to do that process. But it's really interesting because what I'm going to show you here is just some nuances of the difference between a car that looks just about perfect and a car that actually is starting to get toward that perfection. So when you look at this car right now, and this car has already been stripped down to the glass, then it was primed, then it was blocked, and now it's been basically high built primer again. Will, if you don't mind, can you kick the lights off? And I'm gonna do a demonstration, and I don't think we'll have to go any farther than just this spot right here. And this spot is not gonna be unusual. So the first and most important thing is you need a really good flashlight to do this thing. But right here, see that there's a couple of very, very fine shadows right here. You see, even my hand screws the shadow up, but you can see there's a shadow there and there. You see those? Here, let me see those two little shadows get picked up? Okay, so what that tells you is that those two are low spots. Now, Will, if you can hold the flashlight, and what do we got here? What grit?
320.
320, which is a pretty good grit. And I believe you should always sand in a 45, never sand straight. Now, that was 10 seconds of sanding, and you'll notice that the low spots are gone. That is now perfectly flat. So, what I've just done here in this 1 foot by 2 inch space is with 10 seconds of sanding, we got rid of those two low spots, but trust me, there's plenty more, because when you bring the light down here, you'll notice there's a low spot, there's a low spot, there's a low spot, there's a low spot. I mean, just in this frame right here, I'm seeing 20 low spots. Now, Will, if you would go turn the light back on. And so now we're getting to the difference of what is the difference between good and great. The low spots that I'm pointing out here are about 1 mil in size. And to put in perspective, a human hair is about 6 mils. So we're talking about something that's far smaller than a human hair. And normally, most shops wouldn't deal with 1 mil defects in a paint job, but I would like this paint job to be able to look into it and read a newspaper from 10 feet away if your eyes are good enough. And in order to get to that level of quality, you have to take it down to the 1 mil. So Will, here's where we're kind of go with this car. We have almost no filler on this car, right? How much do you think we have in total on the car, not counting the right front headlight? What if total amount of, like, we're still working with the same gallon of filler we started with. Yep. And how much of that gallon is left, approximately?
Probably about 3/4 left.
Okay, so we've used about a quart of filler on the whole car. All right, and so what have you been mixing in the filler to make it flow beautifully?
All resin.
So how much have you got left in that gallon that we started with on this car?
About 3/4.
Okay, so we've used about a quart of filler on the entire car, and that includes the right front headlight,
right.
which was the only damage on this car. This has been a very nice car from the perspective of crashes, because let's face it, 65 Corvettes were raced,
right.
and a lot of them got crunched, and so it isn't unusual to find a car that's been cracked everywhere, right? So very light amount of filler. And you saw, how many strokes do you think I did on this paint right here in just a minute ago?
About 4 or 5 strokes.
Yeah, and did you see that it already cleaned up those little imperfections? And so folks, that's the level we're getting to with this car. So, you know, people want to go out and get all sorts of fancy equipment, but what are the fancy things that you need to do what we're doing here?
Blocks, sandpaper.
Good flashlight.
Good flashlight, yeah.
A good flashlight and a room that you can turn the lights off.
Right.
So everything that we're doing here could be done at home. How many hours have you been blocking it?
Going on about a week and a half, almost 2 weeks.
Okay, so probably 80 hours of blocking. So I'm not going to tell you it happens in one weekend, because it doesn't. And how long did it take to strip this car, stripping it properly?
About 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah, so in other words, we're probably at around 200 or so hours so far, around 200.
Right.
And so here's where I want to go. I want to get the guide coat out, all right? And so I just wanted to do this as a demonstration, but I need you to get the guide coat out, and I want to guide coat the entire car, and I'm hoping that this is the last block we're going to do, because for the most part, the deviations we're seeing is actually the difference in how much I applied with the gun. We're down to that level. I mean, with a gun and high build, you're typically going to apply anywhere from about 1 to about 8 mils of material. And there were a few spots yesterday that I knew had a few issues, and I applied about 8 mils. But 8 mils should be, which is just more than the thickness of a human hair, should be more than enough, so that at this point, with guide coat,
right,
we're on our final block. All right, so can you go grab the guide coat real quick, and let's just put a little bit on here, and I'll show you the difference of what happens when you guide coat. All right, so go ahead and do me a favor and smear a guide coat on this part that we know. All right, so guide coat, I'm not sure what it is. It's probably some sort of a charcoal based. It's non-reactive, so it's actually fairly friendly. I'm not sure if this block, do we have a, let me try it with this block. And the rule of thumb is you want to use the longest, biggest block you can get away with.
Right.
Because small blocks tend to follow imperfections, where big blocks tend to bring out imperfections. So right now, doesn't that look perfectly smooth?
Yeah.
And if you ran your hand across it, you'd say it's perfectly smooth. But we're going to see. Do me a favor, grab me the sanding block. Yeah, that's good. I didn't realize we had that one right here. All right, so I'm going to use, and look, a good set of sanding blocks, you can buy a pretty good set for about $100. And it's worth it. Don't go cheap on your sanding blocks. So I'm gonna, because I've got this curve here and I want to follow the curve, well, I'll tell you what, I'm gonna let you do it and I'm gonna talk as you do it. And so what we're looking for is for dark spots and light spots to come out. All right, stop there. So what we saw before that you could only see with shadows, notice that they're coming out. Mm-hmm. Now, how deep do you think, like there's your darkest spot of all, right? How deep do you think that is? Any thoughts?
Probably about like 2 mils.
Okay, so let's do something, and I think he's right. I put about 6 or 7 mils of material there, so let's sand until that one goes away. Okay, we're into about probably a total of 30 seconds of sanding so far, and he's doing probably half of a square foot. Now, we're using a fine sandpaper. You don't want to try and take these things out with 80 grit or 120 grit. We're using, what, 320?
Yeah.
So I like a 300 to about a 400 sandpaper. Remember, we took the deepest divot that we found in this fender, and that's the one he's working on now. Okay, so at this point, we've actually still got, I would say that we're down to about 2 BBs.
Right.
That's the size of a spot, about 2 BBs. Now we can keep sanding it out, or we can actually add probably 1 mil to that little spot. So this is the process that we're now going to go around on the car. So Will's going to take the guide coat, only because sanding in the dark with flashlights
Doesn't work.
yeah, it's a little tough to do.
Yeah.
So Will's going to follow this and basically take what I think is probably about our last pass. Right. We may find, because like I say, this was the worst spot on the entire fender, and I think, in fact, I'm going to take another minute and see if I can see if it's going to go out.
I think you got it.
You know what I think?
I think you got it.
I think it's gone. And have we cut through our primer?
Nope.
I think you got it.
Okay. At this point, folks, with probably, and I did go heavier on the top surface. So I got a rule of thumb when we build a car here. We've got 3 different areas. We've got below the water line, above the water line, and what I'll call the horizontals. The horizontals are always the highest standard, the above the water line is the next highest standard, and the below the water line, I'm not going to say it's a low standard, but you can get away with a little bit here, and it has to do with the way light reflects off a car. So focus your energies on horizontal surfaces always first. But that was the worst divot in this horizontal surface, and probably your time and my time together is what, 2 minutes of sanding?
2 minutes, yep.
And we have now perfected an area that's about a square foot. So it's going to take hours to reblock this. But I'm interested to see, because I'm giving Will the credit. Will's going to be the guy in here slinging sandpaper. And in that time, he's going to point out if there is something that still isn't hit, we're going to do it. But what we're doing here, if you follow these procedures, wouldn't you agree that you can get an amazing car? Will, when you break bodywork down, it's like eating an elephant, right?
I guess, yeah.
Well, and that you eat an elephant 1 bite at a time.
Right.
Has there been any part of this process that's been rocket science?
Not really.
Not really.
No.
But has it been fast and easy?
Pretty much. In a way.
You think it's been fast?
Well, for me, because I know how to do certain things, but...
Okay, but I mean...
No, not really.
You're not doing this in a week.
It's not a fast project, no.
Yeah, so, you know, I would dedicate, like, because we had a nice body here, we're going to have probably 2 to 3 months all in to turn a nice body into a stunning body. People think it can happen over a weekend or something like that. They're delusional. This will take time, and we're gonna keep bringing you sequences of what it takes, because you'll notice that our inner fender flares, our inner fender wells, they're not done yet. They still have to be done. This frame is actually not the frame that the car is leaving out of here on. It's just a roller dolly to set this on to do body work on. So there's a lot of devil in the details, right? But the thing that kills everybody, which is how do I take and get a straight, clean, well-gapped body, it's just a matter of
Time.
It's time, perseverance, and doing it, and Will?
Doing it the right way.
I'm going to give you back your sanding block and let you continue on, but so far he's done an amazing job, and for what it's worth, my total time on this body has been about 3 or 4 hours. He's done 98% of it himself. And Will, 2 years ago, how many cars had you ever been part of working on in terms of painting?
None at all.
So you've learned in 2 years how to make magic in a car. So folks, you can do it too. You got to be willing to spend the time. You got to be willing to sort of pierce that veil of uncertainty that stops everyone from doing this. But you follow some basic rules. We'll do our best to keep giving you those rules. You'll do just fine. And with that, Will, I'm going to let you get back to work.
All right.
Will has his work cut out for him, and so do I with all the other parts of the build and making arrangements for a charity that both Otis and the Phantom Works team want to support. You guys know the drill. Like, subscribe, and make sure to comment below. What did you learn about Bodywork